Good afternoon and welcome to another exciting episode of Talking Sports. Of course, you're on the APL, which is the Antigua Parish League Network, and I am your host, Marvelous M.R. Richards. And today we will be remembering a sport icon, a stalwart who passed just recently on this year. And he's known as, of course, Patrick Clay Foster White, also known as Pat White. The former director of sports. But before I introduce our guests here this afternoon, we'd like to let you know that Talking Sport is made possible by ACB Caribbean. They are our platinum sponsor, and they have been in banking for over 64 years, and also 44 years of sponsoring Parish League cricket in Antigua. So we suggest for all your financial and banking needs that you need to check them out. They are situated at the corner of Thames and St. Mary Street, and they are the ACB Caribbean, Simply Smarter Banking. Also Blue Mountain Water. It is known as the greatest taste in water and also the purest. And you can get that at mega distributors. They are situated on the American Road. Also Cecil Charles Group of Companies, which is Seco Pharmacy, which is situated right here on High Street for all your pharmacy and medical needs. And they're always dedicated to serving the healthcare needs of all their customers. And as I said, they are situated right here on High Street, so do check them out. Also Hutchison Limited, the agents for Pine Hill Juices. And I just simply say all flavors available. And they are situated on the Factory Road. Also plumbing and electrical for great services and good deals. Everything plumbing and electrical. They are situated on the Potter's Main Road, and also Branford. That's where you pay less for quality branded products, and they cater for men, women and children, and they are also situated right here on High Street. And remember, we are on Facebook, and it's Facebook at ACB Caribbean, at Antigua Parish League, YouTube at Antigua Parish League, Instagram at Antigua Parish League, and also we are coming to you live on Channel 8 CTV right here in Antigua. Remember to share and to like. Now I'll introduce to you my in-house studio guest, who is none other than Gatesworth James. He was also the former president of the Antigua and Barbuda Football Association, and also a sports icon in his own right as a player, and also went on to be an administrator. And also we have on Zoom, down there in Tallahassee, none other than Leon Francis, who's also a former president of the Antigua and Barbuda Football Association. Welcome guys, welcome to Talking Sports.
Thank you very much, Mervyn.
Thank you so very much, Mervyn. Welcome guys, welcome to Talking Sports.
Thank you very much. Voice.
Just a while ago, Leon, I think we lost you just for a little, just to ensure that your audio is on.
Oh dear.
We're experiencing the same thing. So I will, first of all, talk to Gaty, who is in my studio guest at the moment. And guess what? When I heard the news on the 9th of August of the passing of Pat White, there was definitely a void
created
in the whole in Antigua, for that matter, not necessarily his family and friends, but the whole sporting fraternity.
Indeed.
And tell us, give us some of your memories of the great man himself.
Well, thank you very much, Emma. Firstly, let me express condolences to his family, his family, Cheryl and his son, John, and the entire Pat White family and close friends. Indeed, Pat and I go back a long, long way. We lived in Villa, neighborly, I should say, on the same street, Diet Street. We lived there for quite a while, so no way, I like the Blackburn Park, so anytime I'm going to the Blackburn Park, I must pass his home, and if he's coming to work to St. John's, he got to pass my home. And we have that kind of bond that we always exchange some words of something. And Pat is a very in-depth thinker. And there are things that he comes up with that you may not be thinking at the same time, but he can just open the conversation on a matter that really has depth in his deliberation. So we knew each other from that early days. I had known Pat before, but he didn't know that I ran into him, because first time I actually ran into him, he used to take a couple of steps up to the wicket and throw over a ball. He bowls a sort of not a fast bowler. You wouldn't call him a fast bowler, but he's one of those bowlers that keeps the ball between on the wicket, and has it turn in the air. You got to watch that, and it can be struck to the boundary as I've done before. But yeah, he's a hard player. He's a hard player. But I've known him then. I didn't get to know him that well until I went to Villa, and there is where we exchanged quite a bit of thought process in this. Yeah.
But what was he like growing up? As I would think that you guys were boys.
Well, Pat was a little more senior than I am, but of course he was a person who, because of his demeanor, quiet, unruffled, kind of cool-going fellow, so that you can always, when you're in his company, there is some level of discussion that is going on that is going to educate and edify what we're talking about. We exchange a number of thought process, where later on in life we became very, very close, because as I became the president of the Football Association, following steps like people like Mackett, Henson Barnes, Rugby Lake, and Max Martin, and Les Williams, and so on, Pat found himself on my executive and as a second vice president. And for the 10 years that I was president under the Football Association, I've not known another second vice president. And never at all would he want to move from that position. But I understood why, and he explained it. You see, Pat was in the Ministry of Sports.
That's right.
And certainly if he becomes the first vice president of Football Association, certainly anything happens to the president, he has to take over, right? And therefore it will show a sort of a conflict. And he was very careful about that kind of a situation.
He was very careful about it.
Very, very careful. And therefore matters that may have to be raised, which involves other sporting organization, he was out of that. He would give his advice, but he stay out of that because he wants to be a mediator. And I've seen him mediated while as a member of the member of the executive of the Football Association. I've seen him mediate between other sporting organization and the Football Association, and really hit a good compromise. So that we had a very good relationship, and he can be admired, he would be admired for his level-headedness, his unruffledness. There are times when my executive, when you have characters or people who were ruffled and boisterous and that other things with their points, and all the points were towards a betterment of football, an improvement of the game, and that kind of thing. And Pat will be in that meeting and very quiet, and then as soon as I call upon Pat for his views, you can hear logics and things that comes down the line that sometimes leads to the resolution of a lot of the things that are happening. And
I don't think you could have said anything better, because that is my experience of the man himself when I worked with him also. Liam, could you tell us some of your memories of the man himself?
Yeah, first of all, let me just thank you guys for inviting me to be on the program this evening. I'm delighted to be here. My first recollection of coming close to Pat was his brother, Sidney Pillou. He worked with me at Public Works. We worked in Public Works stores. And he called me before he departed to the United States to get his permanent residency. and asked me to be Pat White's best man for his first wedding. He married Lynn Hesley White. And of course, after a few months knowing him, I got close to him, and I invited him to become an agent, a British American. He did well, but somehow, somewhere along the line, we knew that Pat was made out to be involved with sports. He left, and the first act of kindness that I knew that he did was he joined the voluntary coaching committee, and he invited Andy Roberts, Andy, to speak to the members of the British American staff. And the effect that had on that staff, the production went up, and I knew that he was a person. I think I never thought of that. No other company would have invited an international cricketer into their office to speak to the staff. And we had the former guy by the name of Ed Richards. I don't remember his first name, but he came, and the news was on the radio, and it really said something to me. He went on to be a member of my executive when I was president as well, like Katie well, and he always performed well. He always had so much insight. I remember working with him along under the National Sports Council. And the great Sir Garfield Sobers came to visit Antigua, and he was there, and Pat was very impressive. They'd asked me now to take Sir Gary around the island, and all along the talk, he was asking me, who is the guy? Who is the guy? So I explained to him, Pat. But you could tell, a guy who was meticulous, careful, just be careful with the facts. Whenever you talk to him, and he tells you something, or you tell him something, be sure you have it right, because Pat is going to correct you. He was a great man, and as far as I know, he has helped quite a number of folks, and I am so sad that one day I called a radio station, and I really could not hold in my tears, because we go a long way, and he became the godfather of my second daughter. And she always refers to him as Godfather Pat. And on that note, he worked along. I remember his taking up the show on ABS radio in the mornings. It was just also outstanding. And as I can recall, he was the very first person to broadcast live, regular local games, local football matches. Ephraim John used to do cricket, but Pat did all the sports, and he did netball, he did every sport. Antigua, of course, the Caribbean in the world has lost a great man. We so rest in everlasting peace.
Certainly, yeah, because as we look back, I mean, I know that he was very instrumental in the organization of school sports,
Yes.
which he managed here from the Ministry of Sports, and also being a member of course, the Football Association. I also think that he was also a member of the Antigua Cricket Association. He was instrumental in the National Sports Award, where he sought to recognize the contribution made by sportsmen and women, not only the active ones, but he went right back to as far as we could remember in the 50s, asking the associations, to nominate someone who had served in at that particular time when they did not get that sort of recognition, and until we came right up to date. He was also very much involved in the National Sports Awards, something that was done, I think he's done 2 of them when I was working with him, and it's sad that he's never seen it materialize. I mean, the documents are there really to them, for the powers that be to act on it. And as a matter of fact, I think that is one of the things that perhaps that he did not see to fruition before his passing. But he was involved in a lot of things. Also, he was, as you mentioned, he was a news reporter, a sports news reporter, and also a commentator at the games. And
Every sport. You ask him about
and when you add all these things
you.
up, you know, I think it would take maybe 2 lifetimes for ordinary men to accomplish, you know.
I remember once I told him, and he got 2 wickets or 3 wickets. He said, you should have gotten 3 if this guy didn't drop him. Drop his catch. So that was really up to date. He was listening to BBC Sports Roundup and getting all the news. But let me ask you guys, I don't hear much talk about what he did as the president of the West Indies Umpires Association. Can you guys bring me up to date? Because if that was so, he did say to me that was so. But I find that there is no recognition. At least I felt that there should have been an armbar ban being worn during the New Zealand and West Indies matches as the West Indies umpire and the president of the West Indies Umpires Association. I don't know if you guys have seen it that way.
Yes, and he was very much he was responsible also for a lot of people getting involved in umpiring, and I know he took some time to train those umpires, the Clancy Mack and all these guys that went on even to be a part of the West Indies Umpire Association, you know. And one thing we cannot also forget about Pat, it was his, he was a man who, I would say that got the recreation grounds to first-class standard for us to host test matches. And he was very much involved in that, you know.
You got us all involved, I tell you, you got us all involved because remember the match, I think it was Australia West Indies, the first match that was played there. He recruited us to help take that place to a recreation ground. Songs of folks came in and we came with a brush and clean up just to make that place look presentable. And he was very much involved.
Yeah.
Now he was indeed a worker and a very deep thinker, and he was very analytical, and his record keeping is immaculate, and he can always remind you of certain things that if you just go wrong on dates and so on, he has them all. Yeah.
No. I can attest to that because I'm pretty sure that if you go back to the Ministry of Sports right now and you check some of those file cabinets that you will see from his stewardship, when he was the assistant director to Mr. Reginald Samuel, and when he became director, everything is right there on file. And he didn't make any joke about that, you know. As a matter of fact, I tell you a story too. When I was his assistant, and he had asked us, you know, there was a lot of rain and we had to cancel some of the school's cricket games. So he asked myself and Shipwreck to call the schools just to advise them that the game is postponed. And we did call the schools and thought that we had done, you know, a good job in notifying the schools that there would be no games. And then he went on to ask you, who did you talk to? You know, he said, well, I don't know, we spoke to someone at the school, you know, and what time did you do that? And we told him the time and so. But we had to call back the school
to get the name.
To get the name of the person who gave that message to, because he was one of those persons that he wanted to make sure that if he's going to stand up for you, that you were doing the right. That, yes, I asked Mervyn and Shipwreck to call, and he spoke to the secretary, Miss so-and-so, what's her name, at such and such a time. And he knew once we had done what we were supposed to do, that then nothing can go wrong. And as a matter of fact, he was my mentor. When I say my mentor, I liked the way how he did things. For example,
Perfection.
Yes. Well, you know, no one is perfect, but at least he strived for perfection, right? And you cannot mediocrity is something that he will not tolerate. He will not tolerate. So I remember, as I was telling you, that I pride myself off of how he operated. Right now, he was responsible for the Antigua Recreation Grounds. And we would have Roberts, who would do repairs from time to time, because he thought that the Antigua Recreation Ground should have its separate funding from going to the Treasury, because you won't get things done if you have to go to the Treasury. By the time the money,
which was
right,
delayed.
things would not get done. So he thought that the Antigua Recreation Ground should have its own fund. So he had created this Antigua Recreation Ground Development Fund, where we, from the signs of the people, that they had inside the grounds and outside of the grounds, and he made sure that there were some boxes upstairs that companies rented, and all these monies went into. And he was so prudent with with the management of this thing. So whenever a bill was presented to him from Roberts, right, he would tell you, well, look, I don't know too much about these construction and these things, so you take that bill for me, Merv, take it down to the public works department, let the engineers and them guys who go and study all them things to find out whether or not the bill is justifiable. And once they put their stamp and their signature in it, he's still not paying all. He's still paying half. And that is the way how he managed things.
Let me say a few things about him in the Football Association, because whilst being second vice president, he has, I don't remember if I've assigned it to him or he just went on to him like that. He became the Football Association fixture producer. He works on all the fixtures. And you don't have to, he just has to know the team, and it's, as soon as we have a tendency of knowing that once you see it hits March, cricket is finishing, right? Because it was a very organized thing, because he was responsible for all the sports. He knows when it's cricket time, when cricket is supposed to come out, when football takes over, and that kind of thing. So, once it hit the end of March, early April, he's going to come to me, and the registrations are out, right? Because that's one thing, no club is going to play without they are registered, right? And all those forms are in, and it comes to the end of April, middle of May. He's going to come to me and said, this is a fixture that we're going to run with this year. And he has it all laid out that way. And if something should happen during the course of the actual playing season, Pat can almost stay at home and tell you exactly what going there and this going, that kind of thing. He sets up a sort of a stencil of that fixture there.
That's right.
So well,
he taught me that.
it's so well marked out, right? That's a job that he took on. Just every year you have it there. And we run that Football Association fixtures like smooth thing going through. Problems with grounds, Ivy Davis is on my hand. With referee, Ivy Davis is there. Pat White, fixtures and that kind of thing. Sinclair Crump will take on, Sinclair is going between and doing all these things. But it's a well laid out operation. And then after Sinclair, you have people like Ashton McCoy who came in and that kind of stuff. By that time, of course, Leon would have done his job well and gone. Max Martin would have completed, and because we did a thing, we always have problems at the Football Association. When I say problem not to stop the operation, but problems for the betterment. And we remember, we can call to mind Rugby League, and you can never have football, call football without Rugby League. Well, he was the one, to my mind, who actually worked and elevated Antigua Football Association to the level of membership in FIFA and that kind of thing. And I always wondered, and just a little thing on Rugby League, is because of the small island syndrome that rugby didn't go further in this kind of thing, right? But indeed, he worked well. But Pat, I would say, was always behind the operation, the fixturing, and that's a very important part, because this is the product of football. Executive running and working, but if you can't produce a fixture and effect and operationalize a fixture, where people know what they're supposed to do, where statistics are recorded. Yes, it's statistics.
Oh yes.
The statistics are there. And the other thing that we had him assigned to was the manager of the national side.
Oh, yes.
So because he's a disciplinarian, and we had boys who were very good players, but of course because of their environment, sometimes you get out of hand. And Pat will take those boys and really ensure we have discipline within the whole football fraternity. that
Would,
kind of
would,
thing.
would it be fair to say that he was feared and loved? Because when I say
yeah.
feared and loved, right? Those guys who would give trouble,
Yes.
or
Yes. Yeah,
as you
yeah,
mentioned
yeah.
a little earlier,
Yeah.
right? They would, once Pat White was around, they kept themselves in a sort of way because they knew that Pat was not a man who would tolerate, misbehavior. you know?
No, indeed, he was that. But he
And I
can
know he was also the manager when I was still playing. In the latter part of my playing days, he was the manager, and you were the president at the time. We went to French Guyana, Cayenne,
Yeah.
and I remembered when, as the manager, he would, he would bring the immigration card just for you to sign.
Everything, yeah.
He had everything in the passport ready.
Yeah.
All you had to do was just to sign your name, and then when you had to collect pictures and you went to his room, they were all laid out on his bed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's how
He had you all laid out. Yeah.
everything laid out.
Right.
And there was no complaint whatsoever.
No complaint.
No complaint.
None whatsoever. I remember working.
Even the eating.
He took a team, Antigua team, to Princeton in New Jersey.
Yes.
Went over to see that game, and Pat had those guys on control. And the part about it, nobody seemed to be at variance with him. I've never seen him being involved in an argument, because when he gives you a plan and you adhere to what he says, all things will work for the best.
Yeah.
And about Rob Bilate was one of those guys who's a hard worker, very hard worker. He was responsible for drawing up quite a few of the articles of incorporation for the Football Association, and you could always depend on him to fill in the paperwork. And I can remember Rob B also, he went around and organized the Leeward Islands Football Association.
Yes,
Sure,
before.
you remember that quite well, the work he did there. And Pat was always, there to fulfill the task, whatever he's asked to do. Never rebut. He always just comes out and say, hey, this brings some ideas to you that you always have to say, let me think again.
Yeah.
But, again, like I said, Antigua, the Leeward Islands, the West Indies, and probably the world will be missing him, because he has played his part.
Yeah.
And no time has left us.
We need many more workers or persons in the Football Association, I would say. I see these days you have a lot of fighting and so on and that kind of thing, and people want to hold on to office for extended time. These things,
We need what you have to do,
yeah,
and we
you don't need that.
you do,
You
we
don't
get
need
it
that.
done.
You don't really need that. It's a building block. And what I say is that you come, you do your job, you do what you have to do. There are going to be times when the boys may think that it's time for you to move. You have to move.
That's right.
But then the thing is that it doesn't stop your love for the game. It doesn't stop let down the contribution that you have made at all. And I really think that it was a pleasure. If it's one of the fraternities that I really enjoy and am proud of being part of, is the Football Association. I've seen it from the highest level, right, all the way in Zurich. Pat and I sat together. We went to St. Vincent. We had a week's course there. Is it a week? Yeah, it might have been 2 weeks over there, because I think we had a weekend together. It was a course sponsored by the Olympic Association, where the Malaysian people came down and gave us sports administration course there. And Pat shone well on that outing there. We really had some good exchange. Not only was he able to make mark of his own self, Antigua was put on the map right there with the contribution that he made in that particular course. So we're going to miss him. I just hope that the legacy that he left will be observed and carried on by the folks who are there now. You don't need to have all these fighting and bickering. You're going to have debates. You're going to have people who think that it should go this way and people who think it should go another way. What you need is the proper mediation of it, the persons who can really pull the sense of the contribution out of the contributions that others make. Because in a meeting, you know, so the chairman, it's so important that you understand what each member is trying to put over, right? And you guide them to help them to put their points over. While you had other people, you have to listen to what this guy is saying. And he doesn't hog the floor unduly, but of course he makes a point. Then somebody is going to make a point. You can either have a hybrid of those points that are made, or you can leave one and go to the other, right? Or if something, and that is how it works. That's how it works, because you're working for the interests of the players out there, the spectators out there, and the game as a whole to push it along further.
Yeah, and he was also, you know, he was very careful with the equipment and the monies that had to be spent to get these kind of things right, because, you know, I mean, Pat, there was nothing that he didn't think about. In other words, like, when we had to prepare the gears for the school games, he made sure there were 4 pairs of pads, you know, at least he says, well, when 2 is in the wicket, you know,
2 can pad up.
right, 1 can pad up. And he always said, make sure you put in a left-hander glove and so, right? Because, I mean, it's true. I mean, you never know if you would have a left-hander that needed one of these, you know, and you would not be batting with a right-handed glove. So, you know, these are things that sometimes
the
that
meticulousness of
about how we would deal with things. And then at the end of the games, and you look at the bats, and you look at the bats and say, look, this need to fix, you know, and get this fixed, you know, rather than buying a new one, you know. And he would make sure that if he sent you to get something and you had to use any sort of the funds, right, he would have the paperwork for it, right? And when the change came back, he would clip, he had the clip and the change, he would clip, and everything fall up there to go back to wherever that money came from.
You see, I think,
and I believe if you you know, I said to myself that if you tackle things the same way that Pat did, there was no way that you could get yourself in trouble. There was no way that you know, you would not be, you know, accused of anything, you know, very much unlike today, you know. I mean, you know, and as you said a little earlier, you know, we certainly hope that there'll be more people like that, you know, in managerial positions.
Again, Leon, you gotta we have to remember too that we're talking about the days of scarcity, right?
That's right.
Yeah, those are the days of scarcity. That is why when you mention make sure there are 4 pairs of pads and so on, these days now players are able to have their own gears. But when we speak to younger people, they have to understand those are the days of scarcity, right? You don't have your own bat, you know. So you got to go and you select from the bats that are there, and so on.
That's right.
And you got to make sure that you use and you put it back nicely there. So Pat had to work under those environment, really. I think credit must be given to people like Reg Samuel, with whom he worked with, and Pat was a very loyal person to Reg, and know they worked together well. And then when Danny came on, they worked like clockwise in that thing there. I think Pat was a little saddened though that the powers that be at that time did not see the full worth of Danny, and therefore his departure from it was not as smooth and as civil as it should really be. But they worked well together. Pat and Reg Samuel worked well together. Pat and Mervyn. Pat works with you. Shipwreck is the go-to man.
That's right.
Shipwreck anything you call shipwreck. Stanfield, Shipwreck, Joseph, he is there. And he also has made a contribution, a sterling contribution to the support of sports, the whole operation of sports. And I used to try and pull him to be more on the football side than the other side. But of course he is balanced, and he knows when it's cricket, when it's football, and even went on to serve well even on the West Indies thing. Well known friend.
But when you had someone like Pat as the head of the department, I mean, I can see a replica of Pat in Shipwreck, right? Because Shipwreck will also, I mean, from organizing to get the gears, to get the, then he would even jump in a bus, drive the bus. You know, if there was shortage of transportation, at least from the bus station, or you know, because what they will do is that if someone making a run from south, Shipwreck will tell that person, look, bring in the team for me one time.
Right. Oh, okay. I see.
Or if they're going out to take them back out and so. And Shipwreck would have all these things in his head. And when Pat was asking like for the paperwork, Shipwreck would be sitting on there and giving, he said, look, I tell you already, you know, you must jot down all these things. If anything should ever happen, you know, you can't have it in your head. You know? But he also gave Shipwreck, I think, a little leeway,
latitude
to function, because that's how, you know, Shipwreck functions. When you think that there's a problem and you're wondering how you're going to sort it out, Shipwreck comes to mind, and Shipwreck would have already thought about it and dealt with it. You know, and Pat was very similar in that situation. But one thing we also didn't mention about what Pat did, to add to all the other things that we talked about, was that he was on this committee with Fitzroy Brand, that got Andy and Vivi to England with Alva. So, you know, he was heavily involved in the whole development, and it was very nice to hear all those international players kind of mention, you know, you know, how he helped them to shape their career, you know. And Pat was not one to really stick his collar up. But one thing I noticed about him, and I don't know if you've noticed that, but he was a straight. He shoots straight. In other words, if you're wrong, he's going to tell you straight up that you were wrong and how you should have handled it. You know, and even after I left the ministry, right? After he left, after he left the ministry, and I was in charge, you know, he hugged me and you know, and told me, you know, about, I mean, well, we've been through a lot together, and now you understand how this thing goes, and all you have to do is to do your best and make sure that you can give account of everything that, you know, he left that sort of message with me. And from time to time, if I was encountering any sort of situation that I felt I needed some assistance with,
you could always call him.
It was the first man that I would call, and he would tell me exactly where I went wrong, if I did go wrong, and exactly how I should have handled it, and or how I should tackle this particular situation. And I did that, and as you know, I don't walk away without any sort of anything bad to my name, because he was that type of person.
You see, the thing is to Emma, and I said, Leanne, you get these things done. The first thing you have to do is to love what you're doing, and I think that was in Pat. He loved what he was doing. He loved sports, and his quest was for the betterment, because he can critique the batsmen, he can critique the bowlers. I have heard him saying certain things, what should happen there, and so on and so forth. He critiques you, right? But he's just a lover of the game in itself and wants to see the thing done in a proper way, right? So you could also put that into this, tag that to Pat. Pat is a perfectionist. That is, he goes and strive for that perfection all the while, right? And when I look back at it, no wonder he has a tendency when he was bowling to throw it outside the off stump to lure you out there and then bring it straight onto you in a kind of way. Leon used to bowl some things too, but he comes on left arm.
I remember you told a story about Pat giving you the assignment to with Sir Garfield Sobers, you know. I was probably saying that a lot of people would get confused as to whether you were Gary or Gary, Leon would come.
You always say that. You always say that to me, Mom. Because I used to, he was one of my idols when growing up. I'm left, I back left, I go left, and Mr. Garfield was there, and it was a pleasure. I used to imitate him. Mom is the man who will tell the world, show how I used to operate. Like Mom. But anyway, Pat will never know what political side Pat was on. He treated everybody the same. Whether you are ALP, PLM, UPP, everybody. And that's the way I feel in life too. Everybody should be able to choose. Give everybody respect. One thing for sure, we know that Pat does not condone any wrongs. He tried it with his way and with the right way. And a lot of folks will just come up and say, well, listen, I'm going to do like what Pat was. And when I hear a number of folks talk about him so well, I mean, these are accolades that are well deserved.
Yeah.
He's done his part for sports, he's helped a lot of folks, and I believe that lots of folks will be missing him.
Yeah.
And again, may he so rest in peace. And I would have to meet his second wife or his son.
Yeah.
I just want to offer my condolences to them and all the others who are mourning his passing. It has been really a bad thing for me as well. So just can't say much more, but we have to just say thank God that we have had the pleasure of working along with Pat and helping him, and he helped us to build our careers.
Yeah, but you said something just a while ago which is so important, and that politics does not play any part at all in Pat's decision making or his contribution to his work at all. Nothing whatsoever. He gives the same level of respect to every person, whoever ministers in. And that's the remarkable thing of working with different administrations. I recall that every annually before the Football Association would get out its program, one of the annual things we will do is have a meeting with the Minister of Sports. And I recall this time I had to go meet the late Reuben Harris. And well, people will stay out of those meetings, but he will give you his brief. And I would go up there and we meet Mr. Harris, and we discuss the whole gamut of football, what we're looking for, what we're going to be doing, and that kind of thing, and so on and so forth. And you're able to handle people like Mr. Harris in a particular way, because he's completely different than if you handle, let's say, the present Governor General, Sir Rodney Williams, and so on. You know how to handle those things. You know how to handle these matters. But he's non-political in terms of what his thing is, and I don't think Pat discussed these things with people. You don't know what Pat is, what side Pat is on, and so on.
He just work hard and work with perfection. He has a high standard in the quality of his operation, the way he does everything. He doesn't do it halfway. He does it his all. And he deserves to be.
As a matter of fact,
I don't know how he's going to. How are we going to remember him, and how the country will remember him? I don't know, but he deserves to be remembered.
Oh, he has influenced a lot of people. There's a lot of people that came through Pat White. for the time that he has been in sport. I mean, you know, you will hear on the road, and you'll always get the respect, you know, because, you know, after we get a little older and we realize, you know what he's been telling us all the time, you know, he was right. You know, you now get to appreciate that what he was telling you all the time, you know, where you should go. And there was one thing that he also told me, that as a civil servant, that we are the ones who have to protect the ministers from themselves. Indirectly.
Yeah.
You know, because sometimes these ministers, when they get into a particular position, or a ministry to manage, they think that they are the experts at it, and they don't rely on their technicians. And when they didn't,
That's right.
now they may recommend that someone comes into the ministry to work, right? They think because they recommended them to work that they can just tell them to fire them. And he said, no, you can't do that. You know, you need to go through the permanent secretary who wrote them the letter of employment. And if you want to get rid of them, you should go and have a talk with your permanent secretary to say the reason why you want to get rid of them, and that the permanent secretary should write a letter of getting rid of them. So, and he was not afraid to tell them, well, with all due respect, sir, you're wrong, you know, and you can't do that. And I've seen that quite a lot. You know, with him talking to some of these ministers.
But I would just love to just put in this bit here, is that I know we can speak of Pat in a number of things. I haven't heard much from the Football Association on this matter, but I believe they are probably putting their things together, because I would hate to see that current executive don't recognize the contribution, that sterling contribution, I should say, that Pat White would have done for the sports itself. I think there might be some short note, because I think the president must be ill at this point in time.
That's correct.
Right? But I'm available to brief them on some of these kind of matters. At least the appropriate step can be taken in terms of recognizing the contribution that Pat White, and also they should keep a running record of contribution like Ivy Davis and a number of other people who would have done for sports, Clarence Crump and these kind of things. You know, there are people out there who would have made sterling contribution. You know what I mean? I tell you, those were the days of scarcity. So whatever contribution they made in the days of scarcity would double what they make now when there's plenty. And
That's right. And they said
you got to look at it.
So the treasurer used to give an account on a matchbox, and these guys are offices now.
So we're glad that the football administration has moved on, because we never wanted it to. We were always yearning for a level of, even when I served when you were executive, you know, we were always yearning for things to work, and we worked well together. We worked well together.
As a matter of fact, when we brought in the lights at the Antigua Recreation Ground, we weren't the best.
No.
We weren't the best. But at least it helped to increase our gate receipts, that we were able to now manage the first and the second division from that premier gate receipts. And now they were able to get proper lights in there, you know.
So I think they have to, this is why I'm saying that I don't see all the fighting and so on and that kind of thing. It's a stepping stone. And what people before you would have done is a block in building it, going that way, right? And too often, and I give sort of empathize with some of the folks who don't know the early part of history, and therefore what they can talk is just the current situation there.
But as a matter of fact, if you look now at the development center here, now on the factory road, you see that there's a wall.
Yes, I
you
see
know,
the wall.
and for what you're saying, some of these people who have done sterling and have made sterling contribution and so to the sport, they're not there, and perhaps it would be a good idea, as you mentioned, to have a talk with the association, just to do some historical.
They should always, I always think, I always think that the association, Football Association, should have an advisory committee of people who would have passed through that football thing and can give them put them on the right track, because it will help them to move on, because there's a lot of knowledge that they are actually missing, that kind of thing, a lot of knowledge. And not because you wine and dine with the Infantini and all these kind of people now, but there was a roots that you came from.
That's right.
And these people would understand that, you know, I mean, you're building from there, and you need that kind of thing. But apart from that, Pat, as I know him, is not a claimer for, is not a, his service was not for accolade.
That's right.
He awards.
Yeah.
So a lot of people say he should be this and so on, and I think he should be. But if you put it to Pat itself, I mean, that's
And I tell you a story to Gate. I tell you a story to Gate, because you know, he was very instrumental, as I said earlier, with the National Sports Award.
Yeah.
And now he is a man who has done so much, and is thinking about rewarding other people.
And
So sometimes he get missed, and the people who are doing that sort of thing, you know, get sidelined. So what we did after a while, and we were doing this thing. I was working with him. We surprised him one night.
Okay.
And to give him a Hall of Fame. I mean, on the
Okay.
an award for Lifetime Achievement Award. But it came from the staff.
Okay.
It came from myself, Debbie, secretary, Shipwreck, and all of us. We sit down and said, look, I mean, if this thing continues down the road, we would have missed someone like Pat. You understand me? And the night when we did it, he didn't know about it. And the first thing he says, because it was a Saturday night, he says, I'll deal with you all on Monday. You know? But he was really, you know,
appreciative of it.
really appreciated that. And I think he also got an award from a national, I think.
Okay, yeah. I think he must have gotten a few things. If not, I think even posthumously they can still look at what's happened. But I just want to put this bit in, because I had a secretary after Rives Merchant, the late Rives Merchant, the father, right, left, you know. We had a new secretary, a fellow by the name of Ashton McCoy, or Dalva McCoy, came on. And you know, he was young and green. He came from Five Islands, you know, and Five Islands was in those days really a club to reckon with. I don't think your club could even pass Evian all.
No, well, they came in
oh yes, they were lightning. I think I have not seen that particular era of Five Islands with Evie and Nando and
and they had Victor Michael sponsoring them and stuff like that.
Victor was odd and thing, and they really came lightning and that kind of stuff. So Ashton came out, and of course he became general secretary, and of course Pat had to take him on the hands, right? And I think he was sort of responsible for some of his upbringing, going through the ropes. Of course, Ashton became a very good general secretary, of course. But this is not until after he has gone through some of the little scolding and some of the things from Pat and so on, you're running away with certain things. So, and I would say this, I considered my tenure there to be a very successful tenure, right, in terms of the organization and getting people to work together, and in terms of our victory, because at that time when I came on, I think it was somewhat dominating us a bit. and we got it turned around.
Yes.
With Fitzphilip and so on getting on there, and we're able to just, and then yourself, it is your playing days.
That's
and
right.
So we had your playing days. We had to contribute to your playing days and Evie's and all those kind of things.
That's
Really brought us back into line.
That's
So
right.
by the time I leave there, I mean, we were far ahead of what's happening there. But I think most of my success would rest heavily on Pat's contribution towards the
That's right. As a matter of fact, you were talking about Asher McCoy, and he wanted to be on this show too, but because of some work commitment and so he could not make it today. But he had said that that he really wanted to come to make a contribution about Pat, because Pat has helped to shape and to mold him as a sports administrator and contributed to who he is today.
Yeah.
So that is coming from the same
From
action
Ashton,
that you were just
yeah, sure.
talking about. So there's some, at least there are people out there who understand and know the part that Pat had played in their life. But there was another thing about Pat too. It was that after he left the ministry, right, and you know, he still had an interest in what was going on. And, you know, some people just ride off into the sunset.
Yeah.
You know, I've done my time and stuff like that. He would say, he would call me and he said, Merv, what are all those lights still doing on in recreation ground? And all those lights on and stuff like that, you know. And he was worried about wasted energy.
Yeah. Okay.
You know, the waste of energy. And he said, all those lights don't have to be in recreation grounds, man. I mean, so, and these are things that I would move forward to try to rectify and stuff like that. As a matter of fact, some of these playing grounds, Yasko just had lights on burning and there's nobody there participating in any sort of sporting activity. And that led us to start to put some persons from the community responsible for after a certain activity, that at least you leave one light on for security reasons, that areas that was was dark and stuff like that they could just see a little of their way to get home safe and stuff like that. So even though he was not active and he's not something that he thought that he should do, but
you've been
it's something
helping
that
out,
he was still concerned about how things were going, so but I mean I know he sort of I know you got in an accident. When I say an accident, where someone had knocked him from behind and stuff like that and damaged him somewhat, so he was actually going to for therapy and stuff like that. And when I saw him, and he was walking because he had this problem in the back, and even though sometimes you would get yourself in an accident, sometimes it affects you, even though you've been looked after. That there's insurance, someone to fix your car, and then there's also maybe the cost of your therapy and stuff like that. But you're damaged, and sometimes you can never be the same that you were before. And from time to time, you go downhill because of that particular incident, and so I don't know how, the reason for his passing, but
I didn't hear anything for quite a while. I heard John, his son, made mention of some of the things he's been going through for a while, and to the extent that he had some ailment, really, and he went down that kind of thing. So, with respect to the family, I think John was able to give a few hints in terms of what would have caused him. But heaven only the Lord knows exactly why he takes us out. But what we hope for, that he goes out. And I think that one of the honorable things that I understood that he did recognize that he was leaving, and he was able to pass on quite a lot of the instructions and guidance to his son. So that I would think we would still have another Pat White, not a Pat White, but maybe a John White.
John White, another White.
Yeah, another White, yeah. But I just think you can never say too much about him. You know. Yeah. Okay. So you can never say too much about a man like Pat. Never say too much about him. Really. I mean, some of my records are lost, but I think Pat will. We can always go to John and get some of those records.
Oh, yeah.
I think
Or you can go to that ministry, and, and you can go to the ministry, and everything is accounted for. I can put my head on the block for that, because you mean, you know, after a national sports award, or after any the school's cricket program, or the school's football program, they will all have to compile the fixtures, who refereed the game, when it was played, from postponement to when it was rescheduled, the persons who played, the team lists and all these kind of things will be put together and put aside to say the 2003 football season, and that goes into the cabinet. And if there were things missing, you know, that would not be filed away. So we had to make sure that these things were, you know, we're ready.
This is good. This is good. The only thing that those should really be on some electronic thing these days, you know.
True.
I suppose that's another thing to talk about. Another thing to talk about.
And he, you know, we mentioned about like when you used to write letters, right? And his secretary did the letters, you know. You know, you'll find him there looking over his glasses, you know.
Yeah.
And then he would be saying to me, Marvin, you have to look over letters and stuff like that now, because after 3 years and a year and so after you let it go out, and then you see a mistake there, how you would feel. I mean, you know, you know. So you have to make sure that all the I's were dotted and all the T's crossed, you know, and where a comma should be and where it should end, full stop to start something else again. And he was that type of person, and I mean, and it's not something that he's strained.
Yes.
You know, when we say strained, to say, to force to tell you this, it was just part of him, just to impart this.
I must tell you, that's part of the training that we get at the PMS school too. But you know,
yes.
When you look back at that, you wonder how much work these stenographers, these people had to do, because he's a typewriter, and if you make these mistakes, you know, either you're going to mess it up with all the white out.
Right, do you have white all the time? That's right.
So you had, things have changed, things have really moved well and moved nicely along, but it was a foundation that caused us to be who we are. If we didn't have that foundation, I will say to all the current administrators of sports and players of sports and so on, that is certainly would be in a worse off position. But it's a foundation. That is why you got to look back at what was done before your time and consider it to be a building block. It's a building block. You mean, I might not have done it a particular way. You came after and you put it that way, and somebody else carried on. And at the end of the day, we are reaching the goal. What we really should be doing is to see how quickly we can catch up and can move on. Right? And the innovation and thought process and so on, and that kind of thing. You have to be innovative and looking at things ahead of you, and that kind of stuff there. But I want to just mention, because when you talk of administration and football and this kind of sports administration, we must recognize all the people who were really been there before. And I called a few. I recalled at one stage, as a player, you have a player like Arthur Mackett, who was president. Mackett, I think his name was really. You have Henson Barnes, who was also president and did well in that kind of thing. Yeah. Rugby Lake, of course. Those are the people that I kind of remember. Max Martin, he came on. Leon Francis.
When you talk about Rugby League, right? I mean, he never typed anything in it.
No, rugby is a...
He was a right. He always wrote his letters and signed them and so on.
And you got to be, and you got to know how to read it. What he's writing is really. Yeah. I was one of those who was known to know what to read, what rugby wrote. Because he writes a kind of way.
Yeah.
And if you ask him to read it, he just straight. Exactly what it's like. But he's a good man. He was a good man.
Yes.
Good man. He was a little stubborn to the extent that we had to form a players association once. And had to relax him for a little while. That's how Leon and so on came on the scene, and Leon and Max and so on. He was rugby was a good man. He works well. He and Senkley and so on. But there came a time.
Was there Martin also from Navy Street? There was a heavy man who was.
Leon, you remember Martin? Martin, yeah.
Market was my boss at
He was related to Pat, that's from Pat Martin.
Yeah.
Pat is his uncle.
Football also, eh?
That's Pat's uncle.
Sorry?
Pat Martin's uncle. Yeah.
I know that Martin.
Martin.
Yeah. Martin was there. I don't quite remember.
He was a wicketkeeper, national wicketkeeper. Yes.
No, we're not talking about Pat. We're not talking about Clement. We're not talking about Clement, Pat Martin.
No, there was another Martin there. He said man around. Yeah.
CBH, I think.
And he was from Navy Street.
Oh, okay. All right.
And that's all I know because he was really close to the Rovers community.
Well, Ovals people, with the Ovals people.
You can count yourself as an old man too now, because you found yourself, if you're going from southeast to
Well,
to north, you have to pass. You
I had to pass.
That's why some of the group is sort of rub off from you.
Go on. And then, of course, going down the line, I remember Les Williams was one of those presidents, of course. Your humble servant, Lennox Weston.
He was also
thing. As a matter of fact, Lennox was first vice president to me for a couple of years, and then after I figured I had enough of that kind of thing, I told Lennox I wouldn't be running again, so I wanted to step up to the plate.
Okay.
And so I stepped down.
You know, I find those kind of things happening.
Yeah, but the thing is that he said, well, if he's going to be president, he wants me to be first vice president. So I had to stay on as his vice president, And then we had the great Futura Cup. That was the era when the Futura Cup started. Antigua was the first that you got this. No? I went up to Zurich and was able to get that, the Futura games where people were getting gears, because you never really get free gears and that kind of thing.
There's an instructor
and everything, and balls and everything. We had like
Boots and shoes.
boots, everything. Yeah, everything was there. But the Futura Cup, Futura 1, that's what we call it.
I still have a jersey now. It was a dark blue one.
Yeah. And then Ralph Potter came on after that. And well, we know the story of Ralph Potter. Don't say too much about it. But I think they did their service. And then Emma Richards came on. And now we're stuck with the battle.
Yes.
And I say stuck because it has to move on. New things got to be done. Right? Good fellow, but I still think that we should not stop thinking far and wide in terms of how we're building the game.
But somehow I find that the association is somewhat like, the administration, government administration now. They have a lot more to work with. And getting less done. No, the FAP is much heavier than we were there. And there's so much more money to do a lot more things, and we're not seeing a lot of things happening.
I think what happened when you look at the history of football, and I'll put that in, there was an era in the football that is regrettable. regrettable when you've got to bring down the CFU CONCACAF president down to undermine an election. Right, undermine election. Well, that is the period I'm talking about. He was in the hotel over there.
That's it.
And pulling in people. Having little meetings and so on. Why is that? You know, I mean, it was just a shame.
And the shameful thing about that, right, is that, you know, if you were elected to serve in a certain position, right, and you're not doing a good job, and the clubs or the people in them who you know see it that way, and they get rid of you, it tells the true picture of how things are, that you were there and you didn't do anything, and there's someone else that they have the confidence in that will probably come and do better, right? But no, when you're not doing a good job, right, and you were able to influence people to still vote for you because it does not tell you the true picture of what the situation is, and that is the sad part about how we're functioning today, you know. Really, you know. I mean, these guys would kill. You know, I mean, what? I mean, when we were there, okay, we were able to go and travel to some places that we may not even be afford to pay. You understand? And then you get a little stipend for the days that you're there. And sometimes you spend like 3 days you spend a lot of money to go to a place for 3 days. Going to Australia, you probably spend more time on the flight than what you spend at the Congress or whatever it is, you know. And but there was no salary, you know, per se, you know. But these guys will kill out today. I mean, you know, for this thing, you know, and it tells you that there's some things that we didn't know about or we don't know about that.
Well, the thing is that it was not time yet. That's what's happening.
That's what it is.
There wasn't time as yet for that. We were going to it. Remember, you got to fight hard for these things because things were happening up in the international scene that wasn't happening down here. You know, maybe it went as far as Trinidad, getting that kind of thing. But you had to fight like anything down here, and only when they saw the vote was necessary, it was needed.
That's when you come into
when they say, look, no, we got to give these boys certain things, you know.
That's right.
So the guy in Trinidad will say, look, no, give Antigua this. Antigua, right, Antigua, Mabel, we're sending this down to you. Right. And that you know what's going to come after that. But while we talk of football and
I remember days when we used to balls to fence the recreation grounds.
speak a little louder.
Can you recall the days when we used to use the coconut balls?
Oh yes, I do recreation grounds. Right, that was one of the features.
Water from the country pond, to sprinkle the field and have that roll. That was very instrumental in helping me when I was there to have these done, because when you have some setback and it goes in between, it was done. You know it's going to be done. When the Cable and Wire Youth Tournament Championship was held,
That was
Barbados versus Antigua, that was a typical occasion. That ground was hard like cement, and we had to get water up, roll a pitch and to make it even soft in order for us to have a good match. And it went on good because we won, you know. And then of course, Melvin, I'm sure you remember.
I came up in the days, thing there.
To say this, and we're still, you remember the time we used to
Look, let me tell you something too, right? That what Pat also did is that from the school league, our assignment was to was to pick the best of the school league, like a 22, right? And what we would do, we would invite a team, another school team from another island to come, and that was Pat's idea, right? And I can tell you now that those players who we we had at that particular time that we had selected, they came on to be the backbone of the national teams.
Yeah.
You understand? And then what we do, when they would come for the opening of the school's football league, we had a team, a combined school football team to open.
Yeah.
And it was the pride and joy of all the teams to try and make that team to be to play on that opening day.
Oh yeah, that
For
was
the
a big
opening
deal.
of the
Yeah.
school leagues program. And then we would make a return trip at some point, and Pat made sure that that was done. You understand? It's sad now that we don't have that now. It has stopped sometime now. And I think it's something that is necessary that we need to bring back because we were able to expose our young school footballers.
Build up a lot
Yeah.
friendship too.
Right,
Camaraderie
right, and to give them that experience of international representation, you know.
Yeah.
Gentlemen, is there a championship trophy that is being played for in the Football Association? I remember years gone by when we had the DWA Cup. No one seems to know where it was and it has gone.
The walk up.
The
DWA Cup.
Yeah.
DWA Cup. That was the name that it was called. I remember seeing it in 78 and 77 and 78. I think it was Empire 1 in 77 and then Tribal in 78. I don't know if they are playing for it anymore or it has been.
No. Those were the, yeah. I think it had they had a term limit, a life span on those things there. Yeah. But I
remember the great Atomic won the championship 10 times.
Atomic?
10 times in a row. Atomic.
Yeah. Yeah,
Atomic.
Those are early days. Those are early days. Yeah. I don't think Emma would remember. Would know Atomic and so on.
No. When I came into football, no, I got the last of Erdley and these guys. No,
That's sandwich days. Yeah.
I was a little 15-year-old.
Yeah.
When I got Erdley, and then there was Joe Barnes. I remember Joe Barnes and.
Yeah.
And March then, and I got the last of Robert Bascus.
Yeah.
Seeing the short guy sliding across the building.
Yeah.
There was a great fight between Greer and Robin Bascus in the recreation ground. He was more than
This Greer?
You were young then. One of the greatest football fights ever was between Henry Greer and
Greer was
Robin
notable.
Bascus, Senator Robin
He was
Bascus.
notable for staying one.
Yeah.
You know, those days were when you used to stand in the touchline and watch football, you know?
Oh yeah, and
You stand in
and
you
he in the middle, he says, "Hey, go back."
shout and say, "Hey, yeah!" Now we move along.
I don't know
We move along. We had to do that.
Another thing we gotta talk about, right?
The contribution of Pat White, and he made a great impression on my life. And I'm glad that I was able to, when he started to help him at British American, and was a damn good insurance agent, because, you know, when you work at British American, you work hard, you get well compensated. Paying much better than when you're in the private industry, and I was happy to help him along the way, but he chose to go into sports, something that he liked, and he made a success of it, and I'm happy for him. About of course, maybe too will be going.
Yeah, you know, I just have to put in this bit because we've lost. We've lost two great administrators of football in recent time. With Banks going,
That's good.
Yeah, not going. You know, these are things that episodes that I believe
And Liverpool from Villa.
well, this is true. Yeah.
I must say, you know. But another thing that I found about Pat was that, you know, some people would talk. There was a particular person when he talked, he would try to include somebody like you would here.
Yeah, okay.
You know, he would say, and of course, I mean, Pat was there. He was there when we talk about this, you know. A lot of people let that go.
Yeah.
You know, because the person is talking with a group of people or in a particular forum.
Yeah,
Right? I mean, you would hardly find someone stop to correct them. Pat, don't play that.
No, you don't bring in that.
Don't play that, you know. Like you say, oh yes, when we were all there, Pat was there, and so was Gaty, and so and so. Pat said, wait. Pat would just say, no, wait a minute. What you say, I was there? And he correct, you know, and then you had to say, no, I don't think you were there. Because, I mean, you don't play that. And he would not be afraid to interrupt you, to correct you.
And
that is a man who was proud for what he stands for, and was very careful for what he
one of the worst
wanted
things you could do with Pat is to ignore him, you know. When you see you want to intervene, and you want to ignore him, no, because if you go, you make around the meeting, right, you're going to come right back to it, and I was trying to make this, so you can make
that was bad.
He wants to make his point.
That was bad.
He make his,
You know, but the other part was sometimes, I think he could be funny too, you know. I mean, say, you know, I got some funny part to him. We would, you know, we exchange jokes and stuff like that, and what he found funny, and so we would have a laugh. Everybody thought he was just this.
no, he's a jovial person.
He's a very jovial person, you know. It's just that he was straightforward, right? He didn't stand for nonsense. You know, if you had to do anything, it had to be done correctly. And if he was going to pen something, his name was going to be on it.
Yes.
It had to be perfect. You know, and as I told you before, my life was shaped, my style of being an administrator after he had left, and I became the director of sports. I was just following the same way that Pat had led me. And in that particular way, you could not get yourself in any kind of trouble whatsoever. And you could always defend what it is that you're dealing with. And it's just strange that Pat reminded me very much of my father. You know, he was a strict disciplinarian, and also, as I was mentioning a little earlier, he told myself and Viv, you guys have got to be proud for what you stand for and be careful for what you fall for. And when I started working in the ministry, I was getting that same kind of, you know, the same thing. I said, boy, Pat, you remind me of the old man, you know, I mean. And even though someone wanted to come and persuade you to try to do something that's outside the books, because Pat followed the books, you know, I always say, look, I'm not good at these things, to tell you the truth. I'm not good at these things. This is the way we should do it, and that is the way. We can't get ourselves in any kind of trouble if we do it that way. And you had mentioned a little earlier also that you wish that there were more people like Pat. I mean, I think Antigua would have been a better place. Totally, you know, a better place. I mean, you know, and people who are in position of power or position of being the president and so, because some people just like the name Mr. President, you know, but they don't function as a president, or some Mr. Secretary or Mr. Treasurer. They like the names, and they find themselves not really doing the work. And Pat was one of those guys who did the work and really didn't look for any kind of reward or award as most people would. So I think he'll certainly be missed. My condolences again go out to Cheryl, and I must tell you too, you know, even though Pat was just, you know, very particular about certain things and stuff like that, I think he had a great woman behind him in Cheryl, because I know that from time to time, she herself was very, she was like another Pat, you know.
Okay.
And so when two Pat get together, right? Right? And they have John. Oh my God. We can look forward to another man. As a matter of fact, John was one of those youngsters who was very much instrumental in trying to bring about a debate in politics.
Okay.
If two people are vying for a position,
They must have a debate.
then they should have a debate,
yeah.
and the young people should be there to ask questions about so and so. And he was on that committee also.
Okay.
And I thought at that time, I said, boy, that is a little Pat coming out. A Pat coming out in him, you know. And my condolences go to both Cheryl and John and the entire White family, you know. And he did quite a lot for us. He shaped me also to the person that I am today too. And I'm sure that there's a lot of other people out there who will say the same thing that I'm saying.
In my closing part of it, I certainly would like to recall his calm, cool, and collectiveness, his meticulousness, his friendliness as well, because in all he does, he didn't do it to harm anyone at all. I knew him from an early stage, even when he was his first wife, Lynn, as well. I knew him in Cheryl. I knew him, worked with him, as I said, very closely with him on the Football Association. We traveled together. We've been to courses together. And I have had one-on-one meetings, so many one-on-one meetings with him. And also part of my whole executive there. And I've seen him in operation. And I think he is a person that passed through this life, for which I think he has left some footprints that if emulated by some of our people, certainly this country and this world would be better off. So I'm very deep now, saddened with his passing, but I know this is a reality of life. What we have to do, those of us who are left here, is to continue to do the best we can. Do it with open mind and honesty. You may make mistakes and people misunderstand you at times, but within your own hearts and heart, you know you have no malice, no ill will. And if you certainly don't believe in anything, you just don't believe in it, and you have your reasons, which you don't mind sharing. So I think that we have reached a stage where a sporting fraternity in Antigua, and most of the football, but most of the administration of sports in Antigua would have gained from what Pat has contributed, and we're sad to see him go. Right.
Definitely. Well, on that kind of note, I just want to thank you, Betty, and also we want to thank Leanne for coming on and talking sports and sharing some of the memories, the good memories of the great man, Patrick Clare Foster White. And we simply like to say, on behalf of our executive producer, who's Teddy Arundel, along with our cameraman and technician there, Orden, along with our platinum sponsor, ACB Caribbean, Simply Smarter Banking, also Blue Mountain Water, Cecil Charles Group of Companies, Seco Pharmacy, along with Hutchison Limited, plumbing and electrical, along with Branchless. We say goodbye for now until next week Monday, when you can join us for another exciting episode of Talking Sports. This is Mervyn Richards saying goodbye for now.